Even though we can't survive in space for long, humans have managed to install eyes in outer space which allow us to see what is going on out there in real time. However, sometimes these camera eyes capture really strange things that even the most seasoned astronomers can't explain. In this video, we bring you how NASA chief scientist just made a huge announcement after a satellite detected something strange above our planet. One of the biggest achievements of humanity is the International Space Station, the ISS. It serves very important functions, but some of the most interesting features of the structure are the cameras because of the nature of what they often capture. You'll be shocked to see some of them. The ISS, the largest single structure humans ever put into space, was a massive construction project. The main construction was completed between 1998 and 2011, but new components are being added to accommodate new missions and experiments. It has been continuously occupied since November 2000. So who owns the ISS? While NASA is the most prominent space agency in the world, it doesn't own the ISS. It is a cooperative program between Europe, the United States, Russia, Canada, and Japan. Operating the ISS is not cheap. NASA spends about $3 billion annually on the space station, consuming about one-third of its entire budget for human spaceflight. Russia is another major partner and has sent 54 people there, compared to the 158 people the US has sent. You can actually see the ISS without any equipment at night as it's highly visible in the night sky. It appears as a luminous moving point of light and rivals the brilliant planet Venus in brightness. What makes up the ISS? The first Russian modules contain the systems that make the station function and provide living areas for crew members. Modules called nodes connect parts of the station to each other. Stretching out to the sides of the space station are the solar arrays that can be easily seen in the photos of the station. These panels harvest energy from the sun to provide electrical power. The arrays are connected to the station with a long truss. On the truss are radiators that control the space station's temperature. There are robotic arms mounted outside the space station. They were used to build the space station but can also move astronauts around when they conduct spacewalks outside. Other arms operate science experiments. Astronauts can go on spacewalks through airlocks that open to the outside, and pictures of them floating in space are quite popular as they look otherworldly. Docking ports allow other spacecraft to connect to the space station. New crews and visitors arrive through these ports. Astronauts fly to the space station on the Russian Soyuz, and robotic spacecraft use the docking ports to deliver supplies. The ISS affects your everyday life, even if you've not thought of it. Much of the research carried out there has yielded products that we use every day on Earth, and some scientific research can only be carried out in the station because of their requirements. The ISS has a total of 4 external cameras which SpaceX sent as part of the CR3 mission. These high-definition video or HDEV cameras are mounted on the Columbus lab of the ISS. Together, the 4 cameras are called the Columbus Eye, and a live-streaming website is operated by the University of Bonn in Germany. The school partnered with the German Space Agency to establish the Columbus Eye program. While NASA chose to give an official-sounding acronym to the cameras, COTS, or Commercial Off-the-Shelf Cameras, the cameras do basically what all other cameras do: capture live feed. One video camera faces forward, 2 cameras face backward or wake, while 1 camera faces below or nadir. They're connected via an Ethernet cable to the space station's computer and beamed down to Earth. You can trust NASA to make an experiment out of everything. Scientists track the rate of degradation to image quality because they are subjected to cosmic radiation. Scientists also determine how tough the housing for the cameras is when faced with those space rays. The cameras are protected in a pressurized and temperature-controlled box. The analysis of how they are holding up may help engineers decide which cameras are the best types to use on future missions. The feeds from these cameras are quite intriguing, and many people, including amateur astronomers, follow the feed through the internet. However, every now and then, the cameras pick up something that causes lots of excitement. Sometimes people spot what suspiciously looks like an unidentified flying object or a UFO. What baffles watchers is that NASA often cuts the live feed and switches to pre-recorded materials when things get exciting. This has led many people to believe the space agency is hiding something from the public. But what exactly is NASA concealing from us? Take a recent case, for example, that spurred theories of alien spotting in an attempt at a cover-up. YouTube user StreepCap1 posted a video of a stream that NASA abruptly terminated. In the clip, a bright object slowly falls into view, but it's at that particular point that the screen flashes that there are technical problems with the feed. How convenient. But that didn't go unnoticed by watchers, as they pointed out that stopping the feed was highly suspicious. This could well be a meteor or the like, Streepcap1 says in the caption. What made it interesting was the camera cut off when the UFO seemed to stop. So what was NASA's official position? The agency's spokesman, Daniel Hewitt, tried to explain that the live feed was not deliberately cut. Hewitt said cameras mounted on the International Space Station are controlled automatically. According to Hewitt, the station regularly passes out of range of tracking and data relay satellites used to send and receive video, voice, and telemetry from the station. For video, whenever we lose signal, the cameras will show a blue screen or a preset video slate. Nevertheless, people took to social media to refute NASA's claim and insisted that something was not adding up and that NASA might be hiding evidence of aliens. That, however, is not the only time UFOs have been captured by ISS cameras. In another incident, the camera captured a UFO that tracked the space station for about 20 minutes. The bus-sized object must have been traveling at 7.8 kilometers per second to keep up with the station. However, this time before NASA could cut the feed, the footage was picked up and shared on a YouTube channel hosted by noted UFO watcher Scott C. Waring. Waring said concerning the video, "That is NASA zooming in on the UFO, not me. They're as baffled by it as I am. They don't know what it is or why it is there." Waring said the object didn't look like any object he had seen before. To this day, no satisfactory explanation is being given that is not UFO related. And anybody that's been following the ISS will know that the structure is not a stranger to unidentified objects, which makes sense because aliens out there noticing the ISS due to its massive size may want to investigate, sending down probes. Take another case, for example. Ivan Wagner, a Russian cosmonaut who orbited the Earth aboard the ISS, released captured footage of potential UFOs. He was recording a video of the Southern Lights when he happened to be at the right place at the right time. The video lasts 1 minute and shows the aurora australis moving near Antarctica and Australia. However, as Wagner pointed out, you will see something else in the footage. In the 9 to 12 second portion, 5 objects appear and can be seen flying alongside at the same distance. Meanwhile, Wagner observed the UFOs for 52 seconds, but the feed was shortened because it was captured in a time-lapse. Wagner shared the video on his Twitter account, but Russia's space agency Roscosmos also shared it on its Twitter account while it was investigating the video. Wagner was a first-time crew member aboard the ISS when he took the video. Unsurprisingly, NASA never acknowledged Wagner's video. The agency's blog only said Wagner worked on the station's orbital plumbing before exploring ways to improve Earth photography techniques. Even the American astronauts Wagner worked with completely ignored Wagner's video. NASA has a well-documented history of ignoring reports on UFO sightings, even though it falls within its jurisdiction to investigate such claims. But it is getting harder to ignore the topic as interest in UFOs has increased recently in the US and globally. For instance, there has been government-funded research in UFOs and the research is still ongoing. Not only that, but the Pentagon has reported encounters with unidentified aerial phenomena, UAP, another name for UFOs. Meanwhile, even if NASA succeeds in hiding video feeds of UFOs approaching the ISS, there are other shocking space phenomena that it can't hide. Take the case of the plumes coming from Mars that were first discovered by amateur astronomers. There is no room for denial here, as the plume was spotted on 2 separate occasions. One of the amateur observers, known as Wayne, used his 14-inch telescope to capture still images which he stitched together into an animation to show the dynamics of the phenomena. Mars is a weird place to start with, but this mysterious plume takes things even further. What is going on the red planet? The plumes were seen rising to altitudes over 250 kilometers above the same region of Mars on both occasions. Such plumes had been sighted before, but they were never more than 100 kilometers in height, so the difference is remarkable. The plume amazingly developed in less than 10 hours, covering an area of up to 1,000 by 500 kilometers, and remained visible for around 10 days, changing its structure from day to day. As far as Mars is concerned, at about 250 kilometers, the division between the atmosphere and outer space is very thin, so the reported plumes are extremely unexpected. You may wonder why it was a group of amateur astronomers and not NASA that spotted this strange plume first. At least 18 amateur astronomers observed the plume using from 20 to 40 centimeter telescopes at wavelengths from blue to red. NASA actually has a number of spacecraft orbiting Mars, but none of them spotted this plume because of their viewing geometries and illumination conditions at the time. However, when scientists checked archived Hubble Space Telescope images taken between 1995 and 1999 and databases of amateur images taken from 2001 to 2014, they discovered occasional clouds at the limb of Mars, although they were usually only up to 100 kilometers in altitude. But one set of Hubble images from the 17th of May 1997 revealed an abnormally high plume similar to that spotted by the amateur astronomers in 2012. But what is responsible for this giant plume coming from Mars? Scientists have managed to come up with several theories, and some of them are really interesting. But let's start with the location. The plume was sighted over the Terra Cimmeria region centered at 45 degrees south latitude. This area includes the Tiger Stripe array of magnetic fields coming from concentrations of iron ore deposits. The ore deposits were discovered by the Mars Global Surveyor magnetometer during low-altitude aerobraking maneuvers at the beginning of the mission in 1998. Before this plume sighting, observers have recorded aurora events over this area. They were the result of the interaction of the Martian magnetic field with streams of energetic particles streaming from the Sun. However, if these plumes are auroras, they would have to be over 1,000 times brighter than those observed over the Earth. And that is not the only issue with this explanation of the massive plume. Another problem is the altitude. All the auroras spotted in this region have not exceeded 130 kilometers in height, which is about half the height of this plume. Even on Earth, auroras are shorter. They don't go beyond ionospheric altitudes or about 100 kilometers. As already mentioned, the Martian atmosphere at 200 kilometers is exceedingly tenuous, and the production of persistent and very bright aurora at such altitude seems highly improbable. And something else to consider is the duration of the plumes, which lasted for about 10 days for each sighting. Auroral arcs on Earth can only last for hours and not days. The Earth's magnetic field works like a capacitor that stores charged particles from the Sun. Some of these particles are discharged and produce the auroral oval and arcs. But on Mars, there is no equivalent capacitive storage of particles. Auroras over Mars are basically what you see is what you get or come directly from the Sun. Concentrated solar high-energy streams persisting for this long are simply unheard of. Well, there has been another explanation for this mysterious plume on Mars. This has to do with dust or ice crystals. However, the same problem shows up here. How? Martian dust storms typically lift dust as high as 60 kilometers, but that is still significantly shorter than the plume. Martian dust devils will lift particles to 20 kilometers. However, it is this second explanation involving ice crystals or carbon dioxide and water that researchers think is more credible. But in either case, the particles have to be concentrated and their reflectivity must account for the total brightness of the plumes. Ice crystals would be more easily transported to these heights and also would be most highly reflective. There is a third explanation, though, proposed by the European Space Agency, the ESA. After studying this Mars oddity, the ESA believes strongly that the plume was caused not by Mars weather, but by space weather. The Sun interacts with planetary environments, as even amateur astronomers will tell you. When the highly energized particles from the solar wind hit the Earth's global magnetic field, for example, they sometimes get trapped in the magnetosphere and are redirected to high-latitude regions. This influx of solar wind ions will collide with high-altitude atmospheric gases, causing them to glow and creating the auroras that we mentioned before. Wherever there's a magnetic field and an atmosphere, the Sun can kick off a dazzling light show. Astronomers have seen auroras throughout the solar system, including Jupiter, Saturn, and even Venus. But then, solar interactions do not stop at auroras. When Earth is bombarded with coronal mass ejections, or CMEs, which are more or fewer bubbles of magnetized plasma ejected from the Sun's lower atmosphere, the whole of the planet's magnetic configuration feels the effects. It generates powerful electrical currents through the atmosphere and energizes our ionosphere. However, in the case of Mars, there is no global magnetic field to deflect the worst the Sun can throw at it. When a CME hits Earth, the magnetosphere protects the atmosphere, but on Mars, lacking this magnetic shield, it suffers atmospheric erosion. It's possible that Mars once had a thicker atmosphere over billions of years, but the continuous flow of solar wind particles has stripped it away. You can say Mars's atmosphere is leaking into space. The question, however, is whether there was a notable space event around when the plume was discovered. The answer could be the missing piece of the puzzle. ESA did say plasma observations showed there was a space weather event that was large enough to affect Mars and accelerate the rate at which plasma escaped from the planet's atmosphere. However, they couldn't categorically conclude this as they were not able to see any signatures in the ionosphere that could be definitively said to be associated with the plume. All they are left with is circumstantial evidence that Mars's ionosphere was, one way or the other, influenced by a space weather event, such as the impact of a CME. But because of the plume's location, it's a challenge to acquire additional observations of the event, so the evidence remains circumstantial, so the jury is still out on what caused the plume on Mars. But still on Mars, the home of unending mysteries, is an intriguing photograph captured by NASA's Perseverance Mars rover. What makes this photo special? It is in the background where you can see a rainbow. Except that's not a rainbow. Observers have been struck by the multiple colors in the stunning photo and wonder what it is if it's not a rainbow. Well, it was not a rainbow simply because a rainbow cannot form on Mars. Rainbows are created by light reflected off of round water droplets, but there isn't enough water here to condense, and it's too cold for liquid water in the atmosphere, so it doesn't rain on Mars. The image was simply the result of a lens flare, but what is a lens flare? Lens flares are created when non-image forming bright light such as direct sunlight enters the lens and subsequently hits the camera's digital sensor and scatters. Solar flares are a common thing that photographers experience even here on Earth. It's simply a matter of the sun shining into the lens. If this stunning photo is due to the lens, why are such photos not common on the red planet? Well, even for the Perseverance, the camera usually shows so much more crisp details in its images. But there is a difference between the cameras on the Perseverance rover and the cameras on other rovers. The previous Mars exploration rovers had, and the Opportunity rover has, solar filters on most of their cameras. And in addition to solar filters, NASA installed sunshades on the front of Perseverance's HazCams. These sunshades were mission critical because the rover required them to drive forward. However, sunshades weren't considered essential on the rear HazCams, so some of those images have scattered light artifacts. Let's hear what you think of the mysteries of Mars in the comments section below.